Today I want to talk about pedaling. Pedaling is by far one of the most exhaustive topics. It's too huge to cover in just one little video, so I'll be covering it in a number of videos. And even then, I'll just be scratching the surface, because depending on what piece you're playing, what era that piece is from, and the composer and their intentions, it changes. And as musicians and teachers, we all know that the piano went through many developments in and adjustments and fine-tunings during its evolution. And pedals were added and removed. People were always experimenting with adding new effects to the piano. And nowadays, most pianos at least have two pedals: the soft pedal, the una corda pedal, or the damper pedal, which is also referred to as the sustain. A lot of European pianos still only have two pedals on their pianos. In America, we have a third pedal in the middle, oftentimes, and it's the sostenuto pedal. It's a very special pedal. It only will sustain what you tell it to, so it's very selective. And I always have students who are just so eager to learn what that middle pedal does. And of course, you can only apply it in very certain circumstances. So over the next couple videos, I'm going to try my best to give examples from classic repertoire that everybody plays in where I could use the una corda pedal, where I can use the sostenuto pedal, techniques I would use with the regular pedal, whether it's for waltzes or Baroque music or flutter pedal. All these things and topics deserve their own separate little video. So I'm going to try my best to explain these different techniques. The first type of pedaling that everybody learns about when they first start out is legato pedaling, because of course students are focused on being able to connect, and it takes, you know, some years of listening and practice to really understand how much pedal do they really need. So I'm probably going to focus more on that aspect than actual legato pedaling, because we all teach it, we all know it, but maybe I have a few little tricks in my hat that I've been using with really young students to get them to use the pedal correctly. So with the pedaling, usually, and I'll also have some videos showing my feet as well, so you can see what's happening down there. But usually I have to pedal just a little, like a microsecond after I've changed the chord underneath. And usually it is a chord change. Put the pedal down, and then do a little hiccup just after I play the next chord. Hiccup. 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 So sometimes the word hiccup helps them know it goes up, down. And I also actually show it with my hand too. Now that we've been teaching online a lot, sometimes I'll do something like this, where I play with my right hand, but then my left hand is showing the pedal. Okay, so I'll go. It happens right after I play the next chord. The other thing I remind them about is how their hand has to stay down while their foot comes up and down. If they let go of their hand, then of course it lets go of the sound. And you really do get a hiccup in between, okay, instead of a pickup. So legato, you know, I do show them. I use my hand a lot even when we're in person, because they can see my hand better than they can see looking at my foot. If they're looking at my foot, then they don't know what they're doing at the piano. So oftentimes when we're first learning this, we learn it first with just connecting chords, or melody, but chords seem to ring the most because then they know. The other thing that's really important for them to understand is the idea of decay. I talk about it pretty early on, and the kids love to do this little game. They'll play a chord, they put the pedal down, then they let go, and then they slowly pick their foot up. And I ask them to pay attention to the point of when the sound disappears. Do it one more time. Right? And I tell them that's a test. They'll realize, you know, did the sound disappear when they were a quarter up, or halfway up, or all the way up, right? And that way it gives them a sense that the pedal has gradations. It's not just on or off. Some pedals are, but not the sustain pedal. The sustain pedal, oftentimes we want to play with quarter pedal, half pedal, full pedal. It depends on the piece. And I'm going to give a number of examples here in a second of pieces that kind of show all these different ways. But the basic legato is meant for like things like the Little Waltz by Gurlitt. This first note. So I'm kind of going Alright, because if I try to do it exactly when I'm playing it, it might cut it off. It's almost simultaneously, but not quite. So legato pedaling is simply trying to connect over the bar line or over a leap or something that you're doing with your hands. It's trying to connect those two things and keep it legato. So that's the sustain version of the pedal. And like I said, there's plenty of times when we need to do less pedal. Sometimes we even need to flutter the pedal to kind of clear it. Like if I was doing Liszt etude. So right there I was fluttering the pedal just a little bit so I wouldn't get completely held over, right? And being able to flutter it, I can control how much sustain is happening at any given moment. It's especially important when you're trilling. You might want to flutter it a little bit so that it doesn't become too blurry. That's too dry, too blurry. Something in between, right? So learning how to adjust for those gradations of sound is one of the best things that we can teach our students. And it takes years and practice and lots of listening. So in that case, every time I changed the note, or every time it started to get just a little too blurry, I had to either flood the pedal or change the pedal. So it does. It takes a lot of experience and practice in that spot. Sometimes it's when you're coming down a scale, like right? So a lot of those times, you know, it takes recording yourself or having a teacher there to tell you, oh, a little more, a little less. And kind of focusing their listening in a certain spot.